It's your boy Jay Henhan, and I'm back with another episode of How to Kill a Sacred Cow. Tonight on the podcast, we have returning Micah Dank. He wanted to do a presentation that he is calling What is God? It is a question, and he thinks he can help people to find the answer. It was an awesome conversation that we had. The presentation itself is 20-25 minutes, something like that. Wanted to do something special for him, so it's a nice like 3-camera kind of an edit with his slides and you know, just try to make it look good and have it be something that is consumable for years to come. Anybody that comes and wants to check out howtokillasacredcow.com, it is definitely one of the best ways to experience the show. So I am going to have this page up. I'll put it on the home page as well as the new episode. And it is going to be a page just for his work and the content that he has done on our show. It is going to be both episodes, and it'll have the audio underneath each episode. And also you'll find all of his books. He now has 7. He just added a 7th book to his series, Down the Rabbit Hole. This one is called The Unbegun. As you can see, it's got the black cube there. It's a fantastic series. Anybody that hasn't checked it out, you really should go pick up these books. You can also contact him through Facebook and Instagram, and that is, you can get actually autographed copies by contacting him directly. And I encourage everybody to check out his work. It's awesome. I will have his YouTube page in the show notes as well as a link to his syncretism school. He's one of the instructors over at Santos Bonacci's School of Syncretism. It's a fantastic website. Again, if anybody hasn't checked it out, definitely do that. 2 monsters in the astrotheology game, son. Check it. So, I'm going to pass it off now to Micah. Presentation's about 20-25 minutes long, and then we just kind of chat for the other half hour. But as always, I'm happy to have him on, and I look forward to the feedback on this episode. Let me know what you think. I'll be putting this one up on YouTube. Not every episode is going to be ending up on YouTube. If anybody wants to support the show, go over to the homepage at howtokillasacredcow.com. You can buy one of these lovely t-shirts or mugs. It's about all the merch I have so far. I've added a new search bar to the website. I've added a lot of stuff, actually, and I'm looking at all these, and given recent events with PayPal, that button will very likely be disappearing because I honestly do not feel like being fined $2,500 for speaking my mind. If anybody doesn't know anything about that, I suggest you get the fuck rid of your PayPal. Now, without any further ado, Micah Dank. All right, Micah Dank, thanks a lot for coming back on the show, man. It's been a little while since we've had you on last, and you contacted me not too long ago, said you wanted to do a presentation about what is God, and I guess my first question is, Micah, what is God?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, let's find out. What I'm going to share with you is what all the yogis know. This is what Buddha figured out under the fig tree. This is what all the religious texts allude to, veiled. They say for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, as Jesus would say. They all knew this. Okay? What I'm going to do is share it. So let me start. You see this?
Yes, I can, sir.
All right, so let's start. Let's just jump right into it. Okay, so this is from my first book, Into the Rabbit Hole, which is my series. It's going to be a 9-book series. My 8th is coming out in a month, or probably like 3 weeks or so. This is my first book. I wrote this when I was 28. So scientists have determined through completion of the Genome Project that humans are roughly 99.7% identical DNA-wise. 2 penguins are more genetically different than you and I are. Whomever finds this, I want you to try this experiment. Write your name down. Then write your 2 parents' names above yours. Now you have 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and you go on. Let's go back 35 generations. It roughly takes you back to the year 840 AD. You will have 137 billion people. The number of ancestors list reminds me of the story of the servant summoned by the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was pleased with how the servant was doing and wanted to reward him. Serving you is all I desire, the servant insisted. No, I insist you ask for something, anything you desire, the Pharaoh said back. This went back and forth until the Pharaoh got mad and threatened punishment. After thinking long and hard, the servant, seeing a chessboard in front of him, said, On day one, I want 1 piece of rice. On the second, I want 2. Each day you will double the previous days until this chessboard is complete. I will place a grain on each square representing each day completed. The first day, the Pharaoh sent his finest servant in a parade with a golden pouch to deliver the grain. The amount grew exponentially, and halfway through the board, there was no more grain in the land. The Pharaoh summoned the servant back in. Your Highness, all I ever wanted to do was serve you, replied the servant. The servant, although now the wealthiest man in the land, had retained his hubris. It was there that the Pharaoh learned not to question humility or assume that giving material gifts as tokens of appreciation were all that mattered. As for the servant, he continued to work for the Pharaoh. However, he had taken all the rice and continued to feed all the poor and homeless until the day of his death. And the point of both of these stories is that it's simple math. In fact, it's how cells divide in your body and mass produce. The reason I stopped this particular time frame is because roughly how many people it's been calculated that has ever lived on planet Earth. 140 billion people. Remember, I said there was 137 billion people at 840 AD. Okay, so even if we take the Bible literally, we still need to get to October 23rd, 4004 BC. So we're in a bit of jam here. There needs to be a way to bridge the gap, and this is where the pedigree collapse theory comes in. The concept states that there is no other explanation other than a whole lot of incest. Sometimes, like in the case of the Kentucky Blue people, there are no branches on the family tree. Sometimes, like in the banking or royal families, it's to preserve money or quote unquote special genetics. Based on our DNA, geneticists say the furthest point one can be from on this planet from another is 50th cousins. So an Aborigine in Australia and Brad Pitt are no further than 50th cousins. Okay? So if your mother was from country X and your dad was from country X as well, there's a 20% chance they share a common ancestor within 10 generations back. So what does it all mean? Well, in a nutshell, it means far enough back we are all related and are all one, and we should start to act like it. Let's explore different cognitive viewpoints. How about from a creationist then? Well, we all came from Adam and Eve. Technically, Eve from Adam's rib, and even more technically, Adam was made from mud and dirt from the world God created. All go back to one. How about even more technically? Let's go with an evolutionist. Let's start with the Big Bang. Let alone the fact that all the material we all came from, an infinitesimally dense singularity, and no one seems to want to explain where that singularity came from. But we'll let that slide. We were all one at one point. How about the idea of source energy then? If our souls are like crumbs off a cookie, the cookie being source, God, whatever you want to call it, then we are all connected multidimensionally. And upon death, it will be a vibrational change of frequency back to it. So let's try one last one. Aliens placing us here. You would still have to account for the first humans and how we all came about. You don't just magically have a species, poof, we're here. Or do you? If so, who created the first test group of people? Secondly, what about the first spirit consciousness of DNA that evolved this level of higher thinking? There is a big difference between what I am writing and a monkey who's fed up with people taking pictures of him and throwing his shit at them. Still, though, the point is that at some point things had to come back to a singularity in the sense of one source of point. Humans are so quick to think of the end of the world, things ending. What they can't do, what they literally can't do, is think about the beginning, or if there was something before the beginning. So this was my first book 10 years ago, okay? It was so close to the ultimate truth, okay? Which I'm going to get into now, okay? I just had to give you that backstory, okay? So first we need to define God, okay? So let's define God. Jay, give me some characteristics of God that the religious say that people attribute to God.
So this is other people's definition of God or my own?
No, other people's. Just you can say the religious. Let's stay with the religious. What is God?
Well, that would be the creator, would be the easiest answer.
Right.
That's the most common thread between most religions.
Right, but give me some characteristics of God.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So omniscient, all-knowing, the similes. He was the progenitor of everything in the known universe, wrathful yet kind and loving. So I guess in that sense, paradoxical.
Correct. Would you also say that the religious people define God as infinite?
I sure would hope so.
Okay. So we can agree that it falls down on the idea that God is infinite, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
from the religious mouth. Okay. All right. So follow me on this one. The sun tells the hour of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, the zodiac tells the month of the year. I go into this in my astrotheology work, which I think we've done before.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect calendar, okay, that is literally in our view. You can't look outside into the sky and look outside of the 12 zodiacs. You're encased by it. Okay, this is a perfect calendar, a celestial calendar. In our We're not even in a special place in the Milky Way galaxy. We're just somewhere, down to the corner. In where we're located, right? Where we're located, there's a perfect calendar. So to me, that's a fingerprint of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the fact that DNA is a computer blueprint for life and that we have a perfect calendar in the heavens, in the middle of nowhere in the Milky Way galaxy, there's a perfect calendar for us to figure out. These are fingerprints of God. So now we've defined God as existent, okay? Granted, circumstantial evidence, but beyond anything that any human could do. So, where is God then? Well, it must be beyond space and time, beyond the 11 dimensions of string theory. Ask any religious person to define God, and they will tell you that God is infinite. And here is what none of them can admit. So here we go. God is infinite. So let me ask you a question, Jay. What exists outside of infinity? How can something exist outside of infinity?
Well, the thing is that the human mind can't really comprehend infinity, so everything can
We can
exist.
comprehend. We can't comprehend the size
Mm-hmm.
because it's absurd. But we can comprehend the topic. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of infinite is it's never ending. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how can something exist outside of infinity? It can't. The biggest lie we've been taught is that we are separate from God, that we should fear it, that we are separate from it. We are actually a part of it. Many of you have children. They're literally half of your DNA, so they are a part of you. But you experience them subjectively living outside of your body. But they're half of you. But you can't think their thoughts. They live outside of you, but they're half of you. So is with God and us. A piece of God comes down in what we call consciousness into a body, and we feel separate from it when we begin to become self aware. We are all God experiencing itself subjectively. If you are infinite at everything, nothing can exist outside of you, not space or time. So, what do you do if you're everything? What are you going to do? You're going to read a book? You're going to take a class? What are you going to do if you're literally everything? Everything, okay? All encompassing. The only answer to creation, to why creation exists as far as humanity goes, the only answer to that is that you trick yourself into thinking you're not God and you experience yourself subjectively. You come here, you wipe the slate clean, and you experience the everything. Because if you are the everything, you can't experience anything new because you're everything. We are a species with amnesia living in a simulation. Einstein said about God that he believes in the God of Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza was a thinker who said that God doesn't want you huddled in churches and temples in the cold, praying as loud as you can with others, praying the loudest. As Jesus says in the Bible, those that give for publicity or pray the loudest, they have their reward. And what that basically means is you got these people who take videos and pictures of themselves giving money to the homeless people. Their attention that they gather feeds their ego, and that's what they do it for. That's their reward. They didn't do it for the proper reasons. Okay, if you pray by yourself. Spinoza's God wants you to go to the mountains and the lake and enjoy what I am created. I am is everything. God calls himself I am in the Bible. Okay, I am is everything. Okay, when you're talking about Descartes, I think, therefore I am. He actually had it backwards. Okay. That caused a lot of damage. The answer is I am, therefore I think. Okay? Wants you to enjoy what I am created for you and worship that way. The biggest lie we have ever been collectively taught is that we need to fear and worship. When we are a baby, we are in our mother's womb. The mother, being the supreme being, is aware of the baby. However, the baby is not aware of the mother from its vantage point, as is us with God. We are each a piece of God, unaware of the whole because we're in the middle of it. Now we can start talking about Alan Watts, okay? Jesus Christ knew he was God. So wake up and find out eventually who you really are. In our culture, of course, they'll say you're crazy and you're blasphemous, and they'll either put you in jail or in the nut house, which is basically the same thing. However, if you wake up in India and you tell your friends and relations, my goodness, I've just discovered that I'm God, they'll laugh and say, oh, congratulations, at last you found out. That's Alan Watts. And here's Nargis Allegria, who's actually very up and coming, okay? To become absolute, you have to accept that you are God, that there is only God. You have to admit that others are gods too. But if your love does not stretch that far and you are blinded by your shadow, don't complain that liberation did not happen yet. Why should freedom reveal itself to someone who refuses to embody love? When you are ready to perceive God in everything, you have opened a gate that opens the possibility of being eaten by being eaten raw by the absolute. P.S., and this is important too, okay? Everything you hate is God, because there is only God. Anything you think that should not be happening is God, because there is only God. Realize they're only being God and it will prevail, first in your experience, then in the collective. They try and tell you this in the Bible, okay? Isaiah 45:7. Okay, they allude to it, but they never explain it like I'm explaining it. This is God speaking. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do these things. Okay? God is everything. The good, the bad. You have to come to terms with that. Okay? Everything in existence is part of God. The good, the bad, all of it. Religious people can't admit they're God. Only Jesus and God are God. And that conditioning is very hard to break. But how can something exist outside the infinite? I didn't call God infinite. The religious people did. You know? I mean, I am now, but like I didn't originally, that was brought to me. String theory used to be the most cutting edge in quantum physics, and it takes 11 dimensions to make it work. That was about 20 years ago. Now, the cutting edge quantum physics states that the universe is conscious. Well, welcome to the fucking party, okay? Everything is conscious, okay? Incidentally, Hermes talked about string theory 6,000 years ago. The third Hermetic principle is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything vibrates. You are God experiencing itself subjectively through amnesia. The Book of Thomas saying 77, split a piece of wood and I am there. Raise up a stone and you will find me. Okay? God is everything. The wood, the stone. This now makes sense. Quran 5:32. That is why we decreed for the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul without it being guilty of manslaughter or corruption on the earth is as though he has killed all mankind, and whoever saves a life is as though he has saved all mankind, because we are all one. Okay, so when you're good to one, you're good to all. Matthew 25:40 in the Bible. Jesus, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. He knew. We are all one. This makes sense now. We are all God, therefore we are infinite and eternal. When you realize that you are eternal and you are God, just as the enlightened have realized in the past, you get filled with love. When you really take it in and you realize that you're searching for something that's literally in your five senses, okay? The Bibles always tell you to look within. The kingdom of heaven is inside you. The kingdom, it's inside you. They all tell you everything's inside you. You get filled with love, okay? You no longer fear death, and you're driven to love one another. Not because of fear or punishment like the religious. The biggest mystery of life is sitting in front of you in plain sight. The religious texts allude to it, but they never come out and say it. You also have to understand that when you come to this realization, this is important, Jay, that feeling you get when you really take it in and you realize that you are connected to God, you are eternal, you are powerful, you are infinite. That feeling is the exact same feeling that religious people get when they become saved. Okay? Only after that, they are now ruled by a system of fear. Okay? They say God is infinite, but yet they feel separate from God. They fear, they worship, they have to do certain things. They're worried about sin all the time. Okay, this is why it's so hard for them to let go of their holy books as a literal text, which brings me to my next point. The Bible, as I've explained previously, is made up of holy sciences. Okay, metaphysics, astrological, which I go very deep into. Okay, anatomical, alchemical, spiritual, esoteric, and mythology. It's also an etymology book. It's also a numerology book. It's also a gematria book. Those are 10 sciences right there. Each of them need at least your Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours to become an expert at. There is more to actually understand the Bible than you can learn in a lifetime, and it's meant to humble you. Okay, that's what it's for. Okay, however, the Bible is not a few things. It is not literal, it is not history, and it is not original. Okay, we are all God interacting with itself. We are eternal and infinite and powerful. We use DMT and hallucinogenics to see other realms and connect with God. We meditate to lose the voice in our head so that we can be one with the all. This is the secret of life. And you ready for this? The meaning of life is to find your gift. And the purpose of life is to give it away. And that's all there truly is, man. That's the whole thing.
Do you think that is why the Bible is so insistent on sacrifice?
Okay, so when we're talking about sacrifice, you have to understand something. Is that up until how do you mean sacrifice? Do you mean physical sacrifice, or do you mean like spiritual sacrifice?
Well, yeah, I would say everything on that spectrum, from sacrificing time, pleasure, convenience, all the way up to life.
Yes, because the idea. I thought you meant literal sacrifice. I was going to go a different way with this. Yeah, when they tell you to basically, they tell you to basically, what I like to call, subdue your passions, which basically means keep your shit in check. I always tell people on my channel and people in my interviews, the best thing you could ever do is to quit alcohol entirely, because it brings your vibration down. The second best thing you can ever do is to get off porn and quit masturbating. Okay, because what you'll find that happens with both of these things is that when you quit alcohol, okay, your vibration will rise. You'll no longer get hangovers in the morning. You will see things differently. You'll have extra money. I could go on. Okay, when you quit masturbation, okay, masturbation is a way to satisfy your urges. Okay, now some people say that masturbation is a healthy way for people to satisfy their urges, and I would say that sex with a loved one is okay, whereas masturbation, all that is just an artificial dopamine hit. And to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes down to masturbation, when you stop, well, it's hard for it's like quitting anything. It's hard. You're going to get urges, but what you'll find is that eventually the urges will subside and you will become much easier to deal with the opposite sex. You'll not be horny all the time with a quick fix. You won't be doing any of that kind of stuff. They tell you to basically humble yourself. That's basically what it is. And the idea is not to accumulate things that you can't bring with you to the afterlife, because the only thing that's going to come with you to the afterlife is your memories, your thoughts and your memories. And I tell people this all the time, is that you're not responsible for your thoughts. Okay, there's two types of thoughts that I call it. Okay, one is an active thought, one is a passive thought. The active thoughts are like me and you talking right now, where I'm like, as I speak, I'm thinking of things to tell you. Okay, those are active thoughts. Okay, those you're responsible for. Passive thoughts, it's like when you're lying down in bed and then suddenly something embarrassing that you did comes up in your brain, and you're suddenly wide awake. You're not responsible for those. You're supposed to look at those thoughts and let them pass. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just view them and let them go. And that's basically what it is.
Yeah. So a lot of what you've brought up with your presentation and what you just said right there, a lot of that is it's an exercise in accepting the duality of nature. Granted, like nature is both a spectrum and a duality, right? So you have to accept both the fact that you're responsible for some thoughts and not responsible for other ones, and not to get hung up too much on the ones that you're not responsible for. Like, you can think of the most terrible things, but as long as you don't act on them, those are the response. That's that interplay between those two polar opposites of the spectrum. And
Well, I don't believe that there's a judgment at the end of this. I don't think you're going to stand in front of God. First of all, you're not separate from God. You're a part of God. You're not going to be judged. Okay. The only truth that is karma. Karma is the only thing I found to be real on this planet. Karma. Okay. And you have to pay it back. Okay. That's why the elites always show you what they're about to do, because if you accept it, it absolves them of their karma. Karma is real. Okay. And the only thing that you're really responsible for is your actions and your intentions, not your thoughts. Okay. Your actions and your intentions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. It's hilarious because I always find that karma, I don't know if it works like this for everybody, but especially for me, it's instantaneous, instant fucking taneous. If I lie, cheat, steal, I get found out immediately. Maybe I'm just a bad liar. Maybe I'm just a bad thief. But I kind of feel like it's God's way of telling me, like, hey, man, cut the shit out. You know,
Yep.
you're not good at deception, and you never will be. And also, everybody else gets their comeuppance, and it is always the instantaneous karma has always kept me from doing anything truly terrible, because that's always there at the back of my mind, always there in the passive thoughts, like, yo, man, someone's gonna find out immediately.
Right.
And what do you think of this? So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. This is a little bit of a left turn, but not really. I've been thinking about, I think it's in Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, don't cast pearls before swine. Do you think the intention of that is as harsh as it sounds, or do you think it's something more along the lines of don't overload people with things that they're not ready for, almost like the Masonic idea of you have to knock, no one's going to invite you?
Right. Very much so. Very good point. The idea, I mean, that's really well thought out, to be honest with you. How do I answer that?
Because like when someone uses that phrase, it's usually meant more in the harsh sense. But reading the Sermon on the Mount, I don't feel like because it's very much of a it's wrestling with your demons. It's trying to enlighten people. But at the same time, it kind of feels like the tenor of the Sermon on the Mount is more of like, they gotta want it. You know what I mean? Don't worry about, you can't
How many
drag
times
somebody.
Jesus continuously says, constantly, he says, why can't you understand I'm not talking about this? Or why can't you, he gets like annoyed with his disciples that they're not getting it. He gets pissed at them. I give the example in astrotheologies. So the sign Virgo is the lady holding the wheat stalk. Okay, that used to be the beginning of the year, whereas Aries is the beginning of the year now. And what that represented, why it was a lady holding a wheat stalk, is because back in the day, when these ancient holy texts were written, the virgins would go out to get. When Jesus is talking about, why can't you understand I'm not talking about bread, he's actually talking about Virgo. He's talking about the celestial heavens. And my work goes really deep into all of that. But as far as the pearls and the swine goes, absolutely. You have to it's not that you have to know your audience, but you have to realize that everybody's on their own journey, and some people might never get there. Some people might have to come back to do it again. Your five senses that you experience as Jay, right? The feeling of me. Okay, that feeling is no different than my feeling of me. The total amount of consciousness in this world is one. Okay, there is no reason why. And remember, when you ascend to a higher dimension, time doesn't work the same. Time only moves forward in this dimension. Okay, it's more fluid in other dimensions. So, Jay, your next life could be a peasant girl from the 1300s, where you feel and look out there and you see things and you experience things, and it's exactly like you are, only your memory's been wiped.
Have you? This might be like a story that was turned into a YouTube kind of a short video, but I think it's called the metaphor of the egg, and it's basically this person when he dies, he figures out God tells him that he's just being reincarnated over and over again until he lives every life that has ever lived, and then he gets to become a god, which is it sort of implicit in that kind of a story is that there are several gods, but what do you think? Is that kind of
Right.
along the lines of something you're talking about? Like, do you truly believe in reincarnation, or is it more of a hypothetical exercise for you?
No, no. I mean, listen, this is an ancient idea. This goes back to beyond the Upanishads and Hinduism. This goes back to the Sumerians, to the Egyptians, to the Babylonians, the Mesopotamians. This goes back to all of them. It's the same thought process. Okay, you are. I guess the question is not how many lives have you lived. The question is, why did you incarnate at this particular time? What are you looking to do? How are you going to leave your mark? Now, some people don't go that deep in life. They don't exercise their brain. They don't read a lot. They don't come up with original thoughts. A lot of people are just completely happy going to work, having children, because in a way, that's how they're going to live on, is just through their DNA, through their offspring. Okay. Other people are more interested in changing people's lives. It's how do you want to leave a mark? Because the only answer to depression, okay, is creation. Okay, you have to do something. Paint if you're a shitty painter. Who cares? Do something. Leave your mark. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely something about when you endeavor on something that people might call a hobby. There's an interplay there with reality that is it's unlike anything else. Like there's certain things that you do for occupation and for a skill craft and the things that you do to make a living, and you can really get good in that, and you can be passionate about those things. But when you're doing something only for the passion of it, and you can actually like channel your creative and your creative impulses through that thing, and
Right.
also to hone it and to skill it, and to figure out, like, it's a great learning exercise because you learn how you learn when you're learning about a hobby because it's something
Right.
that you want to be doing. No one's forcing you to
Right.
be
They
there.
say the best way to learn is to teach.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Oh, yeah, I definitely think I've learned that very much just doing this podcast, right? Because podcasting is a little bit of teaching,
Yeah.
public speaking, and there's something like incredibly beautiful about the idea of doing something just for the love of that thing. My problem is not an absence of hobbies. My problem is too many hobbies. I have way too many goddamn hobbies. You
Right.
know, are you a musician or anything like that?
Not a music. I'm an author. I'm an author, astrotheologist, and that's about it. That's what I do. But I've got a 9 book series. My eighth is coming out, and I've got a children's book too.
Oh, that's dope. Oh, what's the children's book about?
A is for Aries. It's a kids' astrotheology book.
Mm-hmm. Nice, man. There's. What do you think about the artificial extension of childhood? Do you think that children should be treated as a little god, or as a child and developed into something that could possibly? What's your view on childhood?
I think they'll tell you. Okay, you ever hear the
Hmm.
term "old soul"?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I've met
Yeah,
them.
they'll tell you as they grow up.
Hmm.
They'll tell you as they grow up what they're into. The most important thing you can ever teach a child, okay, who they all hate reading, okay, the most important thing you can teach them is that, listen, you can read about things that you love and literally just do that and
Hmm.
learn about things that you love. That's what you have to get through to them, because most of them just get a syllabus from school, and who gives a shit about that?
Hmm.
That's someone else's journey that they're pushing onto you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hated reading until my early 20s, and I was a pretty damn good student too. Um, And I think what really did it for me too was sci-fi. I've always loved sci-fi movies, and so transitioning into reading sci-fi novels in my early 20s, like the Foundation series from Isaac Asimov, really like that,
Right.
and Philip K. Dick really shot me into a true love for reading.
Right.
And what's great about sci-fi too is that's the genre of ideas. You don't
Well,
read as
sci-fi is just reality reality plus 100 or 200 years, right?
yeah, for sure. What are some of your influences as far as authors go?
Oh Lord. Dan Brown.
I fucking
Um,
love Dan Brown,
my
dude.
book series is literally Da Vinci Code esque with
Hmm.
young wise ass kids. Chuck Palahniuk's up there. Um, I don't really like get excited about an author. I'm more excited about books. I like Paulo Coelho. Um, I it's the books that get me excited. I don't usually follow authors. Dan Brown's a rarity. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's yeah.
So Inferno, prophetic or predictive programming?
So how this basically works, and I explain this in my astrotheology videos that I do on my channel, and I've lectured the Grand Masonic Lodge in Manhattan on it. I teach for Santos Bonacci's syncretism school. Um, how it basically works is the people that wrote these ancient books, okay? These people that wrote the Bible, the people that wrote this, okay, are the same people that are continuously writing them, okay? So what they're doing now is they wrote a bunch of stuff. And what they're doing is instead of prophecy coming true, what is actually happening, okay, is that events are being tailored so that they can be interpreted as fulfilling prophecy, thus keeping half the population in the dark.
Hmm. One thing I loved about Dan Brown is I think it was for when he was writing the Lost Symbol. It might have been the Grand Lodge. It might have been in Manhattan. Actually, they gave him access to their library so that he could write the Lost Symbol. Maybe it was I don't remember exactly which one it was, but that was something totally unique. As he's an outsider. He's not as far as him publicly stating he is not a Mason, and they allowed him access to their archives so that he could write the Lost Symbol. And that is by far my favorite of his books. That book just goes so deep. It's so good. And he, you know what's crazy is that yes, a lot of the art and architecture that he talks about in his books are things that you're already familiar with, but when he describes something, whether that's art or architecture, he is so incredible with his detailed descriptions of that thing that you can see it, and then when you double check your imagination to Google, it's usually fucking spot on. That guy has a very rare talent.
Yeah. I've read
Um,
some of his stories of what he does. Like he hangs himself upside down to rush the blood to his head to come up with ideas. I never have to do any of that because I've never had any. I've never had any writer's block. In fact, if anything, I have too much to write about.
mhm,
I have to stop after the ninth book because after that, it's like jumping the shark. It's the same type of stories over and over again. I'm gonna end my series with something similar to what I just did on your show, and that's going to be it. You're going to see the evolution of the character, all they're learning about astrotheology, conspiracies that are real, and all that stuff.
mhm. Yeah, man, it's I really like your take on religion, how it interfaces with astrotheology. You definitely it's it's similar to Santos. I've had Santos on the show as well. It's similar to Santos, but you got a different mind. You got a more of a methodological approach. I feel like, and it's refreshing in a lot of different ways. Being able
Right. Well, what
to.
Santos can do is there's very few people that blow my mind these days.
Mhm.
And Santos, in any conversation I ever have with him, does that. As far as wealth of information, he blows me out of the water. But what I can do, that he is not as good as I am at. Not to speak poorly of him because I love him dearly, but what I'm much better at is breaking it down and explaining it so that a child can understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that especially for something like public speaking is super important. What was it? I think it was John Taylor Gatto said that the most skilled orators are able to take it down in trucker language, be able to
Well, they
speak
have
with.
to. That's what I think. That's what Einstein said. He said, if you can't explain it to a child, you don't understand it.
Yes, yes. I don't know why this just made me think of it. Have you seen Matt Walsh's "What Is a Woman" yet?
I have. Someone had me watch it. I have seen it.
The in it, this is how you can spot an ideology that has gone awry and or is synthetic and or is agenda driven and not at all authentic, is you can't even define the most central part of your argument. And there's this one moment he has with it's some professor of gender studies where he asks him, point blank, what is a woman, and he won't answer because he knows or suspects that Matt Walsh is trying to get him to answer it in a certain way. And he doesn't want to do it because he knows that even if he is correct in the definition, he feels like Matt has got him. And that is definitely something like, if you can't explain it, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah. What you have to understand is that, like, I don't care what side of the gender ideology you are in. I think both sides are ridiculous, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just back and forth with them. But it's just like politics. I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I mean, I do talk religion, but I don't talk politics ever because it's so divisive. And all it is noise. It's endless noise.
Mm-hmm.
Every election is the most crucial of our lifetime. This and that. I don't vote. I tell people not to vote. I tell people step out of the system. Don't when I'm on Twitter, right? I follow the craziest leftists and the craziest people on the right to remind me that they're both insane.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't even deal with that. I truly don't even deal with that, but it's just distractions. It's distractions from keeping you from your true self, which is what I just told you. Okay. It causes division, hatred, and everything. That's what everything is guided to. Okay. Everything. Okay. Sex is in everything. Everything is about sex. Everything except sex. Sex is about power.
Yeah, that's fucking true. And I totally I feel you on that one, man. I haven't voted in year. I voted when I was 18 because it was fuck it. It's 2008. I'll vote. Doesn't fucking matter. I don't. I only interface with it just to make sure that I can see things coming when they're coming down the pipeline, and also I'm fascinated with it in a very grotesque way. But I have very much of a whatever works type of philosophy. If you've ever seen that, it's a Woody Allen movie with Larry David, Larry David, and the whole point of the movie is, dude, do whatever makes you happy. Whatever that is, fuck everybody else. They can laugh, they can snicker and sneer, but as long as you're happy, what else does it fucking matter?
You know what book you should read?
So
they made it a movie with Peter Sellers. It's from the 70s. It's by a guy named Jerzy Kosinski. It's called Being There. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I love Peter Sellers, so I would definitely check it out. I have not seen it.
It's called Being There. It's a story about a guy who spends his entire life taking care of this rich family. He was like born and bred into this household. He doesn't know shit about shit. All he knows about is tending to the garden, right? So when he goes out into town, he says his name is Chance the Gardener. So society goes, oh, Chauncey Gardner. And they start talking to him, and all he can do is relate it to tendering a garden. And people think he's so prophetic that he makes his way to the White House. Just on these, you would love this book. It's a short book. Okay, it's called Being There. Okay, I don't even think the movie does it justice, but Peter Sellers fought to have it made and to play the part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like a book I would like. I'm a huge Joseph Heller fan, And that sounds very
Like
Joseph
Catch
Heller-esque.
22.
Yeah, Catch-22. Closing Time is actually, I like that's the sequel to Catch-22 he wrote, I think, like 20 years later. I like that a little bit more than Catch-22. And he's also got a very interesting one. Oh, God, what the fuck is it called? It's called... God knows, and it's I think it's Solomon. No, it's David. It's King David, and
Right.
it's Catch-22, but King David, and it
Right.
is
And you know what? The religious people don't want to tell you is that King David was bisexual either.
well, and you know, it's like I don't know where this crazy fascination with people, what people want to do with their genitalia, doesn't matter. It really
That's
doesn't.
what I tell people. I go, I don't care what organ that you pee from that you want to put your mouth on. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's how I put it.
It's like there's something incredibly consistent about humans, and it's the hypocrisy of the human experience is that everybody wants to act, at least, you know, not in every culture, but in Western culture and classical culture especially, is this sexual moralistic type of people like to be they want to dominate over others based on how sexually moral they are. These days, it's or you know, at least up until recently, it was you have to be, you know, a good husband, you know, be monogamous, all these things. And in the Roman context, they would discredit people in the same way. Only that, I mean, you could be gay, you just couldn't take it. You had to be the giver,
Right.
and so that was one of the biggest slurs you could throw on a politician was you take it.
Right.
You know, it's just like at least humans are consistent, but
Right.
it's a non-issue, and I don't, you know, and I say this all the time. The older I get, the less I understand people. I just don't. I can't. The lack of self-awareness and
Yeah.
the lack of just wanting to be good, or even if it's almost like most people might have one or even a couple good qualities, but that's how the scale works, right? It takes a moment to destroy something. It takes a lifetime to build it.
Right.
And it's like you can be smart and or kind of good, but you throw, you know, all kinds of moralistic judgments on other people for not being as good as you, or you can be, you know, whatever, you know, take your example. But the search and the Bible has helped with this for me in a lot of different ways, even though spirituality for me is more of a it's more of a theoretical, it's more of a brain pursuit for me than it is like a spiritual pursuit, but it still has the same effect. And it
That's
is
why we cultivate. That's why we cultivate our audiences, because you know what they say. You know what the saying is, and it's true. If you want to change the world, you change yourself.
absolutely.
Okay, and then when you change yourself, the people. It was you remember the show House?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was an episode where a girl got raped, and she's talking to the house because she only wants to tell him her story, and he has no idea why she wants to share this with him, right? And she says life is a series of rooms, okay, and who you spend time in the room with at the end adds up to your life. Okay, so some people are going to come in and out of the room, okay, but that's why, you know, people who have old souls, or people who have a message or something to say, you know, they're true to themselves. If they keep it true and honest to themselves, then people will gravitate. You know, like, you don't understand people, but I'm sure you love your audience, and I'm sure your audience, you know, fits in well with how you think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what you're doing. You're creating. Well, that's what I go back to. You're creating something.
Yeah, and I'm very paradoxical in that sense. I'm very much a people person. I'm very gregarious, but I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but I don't like most people. I mean, I will be good to them. I won't be an outward asshole,
Yeah.
although I will not let people off the hook for I say everybody gets one. Everyone gets one big one, and after that, that's all your fucking
Right.
chances. Fuck
But you
this.
have to understand too, is everybody, okay, that you meet, that you interact with, is another expression of God trying to figure it all out. You have
That's
to,
what. Yeah.
when you start reminding yourself that constantly, um, you understand why everybody was so peaceful.
Yeah, that's why
Understood this.
everyone gets that baseline amount of human respect from me until they break it. And it's partially because at the end of the day, there's no excuse. You can feign ignorance and all that stuff. You can be knowledge deficit in areas, but being a good person is fairly simple. It's difficult, but it's simple.
Right.
And there's never been more information than there is now. There's never been more people than there are now, and more chances to do the right thing across, a whole bunch of iterations of interactions. And, that's why, that's why spirituality is more of a mind pursuit for me. Something,
Mm-hmm.
But what? So I don't know if I ever asked you this, but what kind of sent you down this path? What was the kind of first thing
I came
that
across a video of Jordan Maxwell when I was just searching YouTube,
Mhm.
and I found it interesting. And I was talking to one of my online friends who was a little further down his journey than I am, and he sent me a video of Santos, and then I just deep dove into that. But I'd always been into spirituality. My mom's spiritual. Um, I came from a very religious, well, not very religious. Let me give it the proper credit. I came from a conservative Jewish household.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what I was brought up as, and it never sat right to me. Like the way that it was taught, go to temple, pray loudly, pray to God. I would always leave and go play games in the temple with friends when my parents were praying, and I was just never into that, and I knew at that age when I was 9 years old that wasn't it, and I just looked for the answers forever, and then I started finding my own answers because there are answers out there, people. There are answers out there. Okay, the reason people do drugs, the reason people have promiscuous sex, the reason people, and this isn't coming from a biblical perspective. I don't care who you sleep with or do whatever. Just understand a couple things. Number one, you're exchanging energies with them. Okay. You're exchanging energies with them when you do things like that. Okay. So you imprint on each other on a soul level. Your toroidal fields match. Okay. They intertwine. Okay. And the other thing too is that, let me see here. I just lost my train of thought. It's okay.
No, it's actually like a beautiful point you
Um,
just made, because that is the best sex that I've ever had. It also happens to be the most meaningful, not just in the moment, but over time. Right. So
yeah.
those
Right.
close
Well, that's my point. That was
interactions
my point.
that
That was my
the
point, is that
meaningful sex.
people that use drugs, people that use alcohol, people that have promiscuous sex, these are all distractions. Okay, these are all distractions. That's all they are. They're just temporary dopamine releases. Okay, you need to find something positive to channel your energy in.
Do you ever see drug use in more of a supplemental or an augmentation kind of a frame? Do you think that if you do something, like a good example is DMT or LSD, mushrooms, using those as a way to forward your spiritual journey, or do you still see it as a distraction?
Yeah, I mean, it's like maybe it was Joe Rogan that said it, but it was just basically, it's like Buddhist monks spend 40, 50 years to get that one split second of enlightenment in meditation. And I forget who said it, but somebody was like, hallucinogenics, that's how you cheat. And I'm all for hallucinogenics if it's dosed properly. If it's dosed properly, I have no issue with it. Those are the ones that are illegal. Okay, those are the ones that are illegal because they don't want you breaking down the paradigm of the matrix that we live in. They don't want you to know that you're infinite. They want to keep you fearful of God, praying, being good because you fear that. They want to keep you controlled. Well, fuck that.
All right, yeah. So, Micah, is there anything you would like to say in conclusion, or point people to any of your sites or links that you would like
Yeah.
to
So
check out?
my book series is called Into the Rabbit Hole by Micah Dank. Okay. Um, I would just go to the first book, Beneath the Veil, and just read the comments from people. I would say do that. Read the comments from people. I have a YouTube channel called Micah Dank Truth Bombs. I would suggest everybody just come and subscribe. In that channel, I have a playlist called Short Bombs, okay? Which I would suggest everyone do. They're 2 to 4 minute videos. Of every one of them is just mind-blowing stuff that you didn't know about. It's that simple. So Micah Dank Truth Bombs. And that's about it.
For sure. And if anybody ever checks out my website, which I hope they do, I have all of Micah's book listed in my library. I'm going to be making a special page devoted just to the series that we've had to just Micah Dank. So all of his books will be found there. Links will be sent right to his page. And yeah, I definitely encourage everybody to check that out. Dude does great work. And Mike, thank you very much for coming on the show, man. It is always a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, man. You know what it is too is I sell signed copies. I sell signed copies of my books too. And I mean, if you just wanted to go on Amazon, the books are like $17 each, maybe $18 each. You know, that's 2 or 3 beers, and you could blow your mind instead. So.
For sure. And do you have anything like a page or a link to have people connect to get a signed copy?
Yeah, you can reach out. I'm on Facebook at Micah Dank, Instagram at Micah Dank, Twitter at Real Mr. Dank, spell out Mr. My email address is intotherabbitholeseries@gmail.com. Just reach out to me. I talk to everyone.
Awesome. Hey, Micah, thanks again for coming on the show, man. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.